Hey guys, welcome back to my channel, and on our budget of $2 and a single pencil and a D&D notebook, we are going to be going over what Todd did in his dungeon. Stick with it. Season 3 time! So, Todd, of course, playing Scut, the Kenku Rogue. His paladin Theon did pass away. If you found that out in the last, not the last campaign diary, but the one before that. Scut is Todd's Kenku Rogue, so his Kenku Rogue is going to go through a dungeon. The dungeon, of course, being the dungeon to Grum, who is the god of nature. Dustin, of course, in the last video I ran on this campaign diary, went through Ignis's dungeon, the goddess of fire. 3 of them all separated out, doing different dungeons. So we're on to where Todd is going and what Todd is doing with Scut. So, basically, Scut went to Bursardi, where he was told the temple would be. He did not notice a temple. There's no temple in this capital city. He basically had to figure out where the temple was. He did some talking to people, went to a thieves guild because he's a rogue. Didn't really talk to the guy, but wrote notes back and forth to the guy because he's a Kenku. And basically found out that he now figured out that the temple is actually hidden beneath a stump in the center of town. And the only way to get in it is to stand in the stump. And then the only way is to wait till moonlight, stand in the stump. You can slide down the stump, get teleported to the front of the temple. So, yep, he did all that fun stuff. You know, talking around, doing all that fun stuff. And then he eventually made it into the temple. When he first made it into the temple, the only way he could go was left or straight, and he decided, I'm going to go straight. In this temple, he had to go through some darts. He got hit a couple times, not a whole lot. Not a whole lot of damage was done there. And he saw an image of a plain green painting. So a canvas that was just green. Then he went down the other way, fought a gnoll, went down, continued going down the corridor, and he came to a spot where there's a room to the right, room to the left. He went in the room to the left, saw a dead man sitting in a wooden chair looking at a painting, and this painting was orange. And then he went to a hallway. Then he went down to a magically sealed door, written on it, a drop of crimson, and the passageway is open. And Todd said he Scut slid his hand and then touched the door, and the door opened. Blah, 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 went down to that, and then he had a hallway of confusion. And then he went up further. It was similar to Dustin's, same thing, 1d4 psychic damage if he fails the saves. Then he went up to further, and it says he saw a spell out, and then underneath it was a picture of the Sword of Fury, what he's going after. And then there was an altar. And altar had like a spike coming out of the top of it. And the thing says, a gift from Thok when he left, all because of Morn's lust for what's within. And it was written above where the empty altar is, and the picture of the Sword of Fury. And Scut decided to prick his finger on the altar, which means he multi-classed. He took 1 level of Warlock, Pact the Archfey. I told him from the beginning, I said, how do you feel about multi-classing? There is a multi-classing opportunity in this dungeon. If you interact with it, your character will become not just a rogue. Your character will become a rogue something. And he said, I'm okay with that. And I said, okay. Because you always have the option to not interact, you know. Even if I tell you that you want to do it, you can always figure out a way to justify not doing something. So he did prick his finger, and he is now a roguelock, a rogue assassin, and a warlock packed at the Archfey. So he is now 4 levels, 3 in rogue, and assassin is his archetype, and 1 level in warlock packed at the He then went to this hallway, and it was a hallway of strength and dex swap, and he fought a goblin. Just because I wanted to make him suffer a little bit. And then further down, he went to a hallway of alignment change, and now he is lawful good. Wahahaha. As a rogue, he's now lawful good. Further down, he came to a doorway, went through the doorway. There was a doorway and a passageway. He went through the doorway. There was a hallway of temptation. There was a very gorgeous woman in the hallway, and if he tried to flirt with her or anything, she would become a were-rat. He was like, I want her to come with me. I said, okay. So I said, who leaves the room first? And he said, I will, and I'll hold the door open for her. She was trapped in the room, and when she got to the end of the thing, she turned into a were-rat, then turned into a regular rat, and just scurried into a crack in the wall. All right. There was a Quaggoth spore servant who guarded him as he took a short rest. Then he continued further. There was a locked door to a room, and he used his thieves' tools to get it open. And he saw a man looking at a painting, and half of the painting was orange and half the painting was black. Then he went back through, one shot at a Grimlock. He assassinated a Grimlock because it surprised him, so he had an automatic crit and just murked him hard. And then he had another hallway of darts that he went through, went up further, hallway of greatest fear. He saw images of like him getting abused because part of his character's backstory is he was abused. And then he passed his wisdom save to realize it was an illusion. He continued up further and continued further down that hallway, and he saw a woman and a man sitting at a table, and on the table was a candle that at one point was lit, but now it was snuffed out. And then he decided to go down another doorway, down this other doorway. It was an empty hallway with a singular sword. Didn't touch the sword. The sword was a mimic. Then he continued down his way, and he went to a hallway. Whoops. He continued, and then he saw two doors and a passageway. He decided to open one of the doors, and one of the doors was a stone statue of a baby boy. He opened the other door, and it was the same stone statue, but it was broken, like cut up. Then he continued down the corridor, and he saw a hallway with a crying child. And if he would have handled the child wrong, the child would have pulled out a knife and stabbed him, dealing 1d4 piercing damage and 2d4 poison damage. He comforted the child and did everything a lawful good boy should do. Continued on, and my number 21, for you guys, you don't have numbers, so 21 was a room of confusion. The room of confusion. He had to make a wisdom saving throw, DC 14. And if he fails that, he needs to make a con save or take 1d4 psychic damage. Then he came up to another room, and in this room he saw a plant, a flame, and a dead body. Went further, went into a room, and there was a hallway, and inside the hallway says, I pity the son of fire and death because, and then he couldn't quite read it because it kind of faded, got chipped and broken over time. So he continued on, and he came to another room. In this room, there was a plant, a flame, a dead body, and then there was also a painting of a child that was scratched up. As he continued on his way, he then came to there was a passageway on the left, passageway on the right. He went to the right, went down. He passed a con save, or else he would have fallen asleep. It was a hallway of sleepiness. Further down, he found a human made entirely out of plants, and then he talked to this human, realized that this human was Grum. Not necessarily like Grum in the flesh, but like this plant was a depiction of Grum, the god of nature, and Grum talked to Todd, answered any of Todd's questions. Todd found out a piece of lore that when Morn was banished to hell, Thok voluntarily went with him because he wanted to be with his brother. So the two of them then voluntarily went to hell. And then Todd also found out that in the pantheon of gods in my world, Hajj doesn't have any relation to any of the other gods. But Hajj is all-knowing. He's the god of knowledge and wisdom. Then he now knows that Thok and Morn are brothers. And he knows that Ignis and Vasca are sisters. And he knows that Grum and Gramp, so Grum being the god of nature and Gramp being the god of the harvest and the god of life, he knows that the two of them are related, being brothers. So he met Grum, continued on further. Grum warned him about the hallway of vines, where he had to make dex saves or else be grabbed by vines, and then he'd have to cut the vines, and the vines deal 1d4 acid damage. And then he got the Sword of Fury. The Sword of Fury is a +1 short sword that deals an extra 1d6 radiant damage. So, things I learned about making this dungeon for Todd and running it with him. There are some players that will overthink a lot of things. I literally told Todd, I was like, you come into a room and there's only a sword on the ground. He was so worried that sword was booby-trapped. He didn't even think of it was a mimic. He just was so worried that sword was booby-trapped. And the problem with overthinking players is you need to remind them that their characters go off of instinct a lot. I mean, they can sit and debate things, but you also got to remember, you're in a dungeon, so there's always the possibility of something bad happening. You know, you just gotta think it through, you know, and work with your players. Make sure it's okay to lore dump. Make sure that your players are okay with lore dumping, because if they're not, it's not going to be good. And all that other fun stuff. Pretty much the main lesson I learned was about overthinking players, lore dumping. Oh, multi-classing. If you want to have an opportunity for your players to multi-class, I always have that in. But I won't let them they just can't multi-class. They'd either have to go to a trainer or go to, or have something happen. So in the case of a warlock, selling his soul, pricking his finger, a demon coming to him in a dream and offering him to join his ranks, or something of the sort. Anything of the sort, really. And Todd's, you're going to find, is very funny, because Todd's is kids' puzzle as well. I use mazes. I just take mazes and I use them as my dungeons. So, like Todd's is this one here. You will see a picture of it up on the screen to make things easier for you. And basically, this is the part 2 to the 3-part dungeon crawls. The next one I'm going to do is with Noah. And that'll be done this week sometime. So that'll be done Thursday, I think. Not the video, but of course not the video. Because the Friday is when you're going to be seeing the explanation video for Season 3, which is the season we're currently in right now. And Thursday I'll be running the dungeon with Noah to see how he does with that dungeon. Yeah, so basically I hope you all are doing well. I am doing fantastic. I'm really loving Season 3 and all of Season 3's opportunities and beginnings and stuff like that. And that's pretty much all I got for this video, and I will be seeing you in the next one.